Agencies Drinking Beer is brought to you by Proposify, software that helps you deliver beautiful proposals in the cloud and close more deals.
We have Miss Faulkner here.
Hi, Miss Faulkner.
I guess I didn't screw up in the last podcast, so you let me come back.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
It was great having you on this one, in the interview. It was good.
I thought it was really interesting with Reneé, and I was happy to have a woman entrepreneur on here and let this be a notice. Women entrepreneurs, I can't even talk today, of the world. We want to interview you on this podcast, so get in touch with us. We'd love to hear about what you're doing.
Sadly, I think this is the 28th episode of Agencies Drinking Beer, and only the third female interviewee.
I mean,
Yeah,
they
it
all
was
are,
a great interview. And
Yeah.
it's not, you guys love to interview women, so,
Of course we do.
and you're friendly and
Yeah,
Go ahead, you can say
we're
charming.
friendly. We try not to make asses of ourselves.
I was going to say, and we can scratch behind your ears. Like, I realized I was describing you like you were a cute puppy dog.
I can't do that because my leg twitches when I do
We are
that.
cute puppy dogs. So yes, we've got a really interesting interview coming up with Reneé Warren. And maybe before then, why don't we talk about your blog post, Jen? Jen wrote a great blog post last week called Stand Up and Speak, 15 Tips to Captivate Your Audience.
I like how you said that. If you said it with a monster truck rally voice, I think it would sound even better.
Jen wrote a great blog post. 15 tips to captivate your audience.
Yep.
Where were the other trucks going? That was my Batman voice, which I'm going to be doing a lot of Batman in about a week.
Are you going as Batman?
I'm going as Batman.
Are you going as Batman to my party this week?
Yes.
Okay.
I get to dress up as Batman 3 times.
Wow.
I'm going to work as Batman Friday before Halloween. I'm going as Batman
Are we
on
dressing up at
Halloween.
work?
I am. You can dress up if you want.
Oh, okay.
I'm dressing up
All right.
next Friday.
I'll dress down.
Wear your yellow raincoat and you can be the killer from I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Okay.
Just bring a hook for
that
it.
spooky, that yellow mane.
Look that up and see. We'll do that. Good
Iron
idea.
Mane raincoat.
Kevin wears this ridiculous yellow raincoat every time
I think
it rains.
I
Kyle
really
was
like
dropped
it.
on his head by someone wearing yellow when he was young or something. He's got a strange thing when people wear yellow.
He gets so mad. Just imagine.
I don't get mad. It's weird. You're like, I'm going to start calling you Milne.
It's just classic. You're like Paddington Bear or something.
No, he's like a guy from Maine, which is what.
Yeah, I suppose. Oh, all right. So yes, Batman. I'm going as Batman.
How original.
I love it. Are your kids going as?
You heard a single tear drop on that mic. That was my single tear.
Are your kids going as like Robin and the Joker or something? Like
No. See, I didn't get to ever. Some people know about this about me. I didn't celebrate Halloween growing up because I was raised in a religion that shall remain nameless that does not allow celebrating of holidays. So this is the 3rd year I've celebrated Halloween. So I am reliving my childhood. Damn it!
You were never able,
The childhood I never had.
you were never able to witness Halloween, were you?
No, I wasn't. No.
But now you're making up for lost time. I love how you have embraced Halloween because you always struck me as a Halloween guy.
It's always I wanted to celebrate Halloween since I was a kid. So I never got to be Wolverine. I never got to be all the cliched. You're always like something really weird and interesting. And your boyfriend Pete was like a donaire a year ago. It was like just donaire is a food here in Nova Scotia. Most people don't know
Google
what that
it.
is. Yeah, Google
It's
donaire.
disgusting and perfect at 2 a.m. when you're drunk. But
You're always something like just weird. You never pick anything cliche.
no, yeah. Well, just because maybe I've had a long time to celebrate Halloween. But you were an awesome Wolverine last year.
I always try to.
You
These last
look
3
like
years, I've really tried to go all out with my costumes. I don't just half-ass it. I don't just like put on little claws and I'm Wolverine. No, I go all out. I do it all. Remember when I was Joker?
You were a great Joker,
Yeah,
and that
Joker
was
was
your
good.
first year. And
Killed it.
my boyfriend and I have a big Halloween party. It's actually basically my boyfriend Pete. It's his version of Christmas. We have more boxes of Halloween stuff than we do Christmas decorations. And Pete actually doesn't really like Christmas, but he's
All that
he's-
warm-hearted
Yeah.
goodness and wholesomeness.
He is the Grinch personified, but Halloween he decorates our whole house and we have a big party. So we were excited when Kyle actually came to our party, and you haven't half-assed your Halloween costume. You've gone right for it.
And you just wait for Batman.
I'm excited.
You just wait, because this is not going to be a half-assed Batman.
I'm excited.
I'm going to have the voice, too.
Oh, the creepy voice. I
I'm going
like
to go a
it.
whole day at work talking like this. Jen, I didn't get that email.
I love it. Do you know that somebody emailed me the other day to see if they could bring a bunch of people not in costume to my Halloween party? I kind of reacted harshly.
Yeah, that's not right.
I didn't. It was like I don't understand the question. You want to? It's a costume party.
Yeah.
You don't
Who can't put a toga on? I mean, do something.
exactly. So I basically told
Can't
them.
wear a loincloth.
It turns out they're. It turns out they're going to be somewhere else first or something, or that's the excuse. But I said, well, we have a tickle trunk when they come in, just like when you go to those fancy restaurants and you have to wear a jacket and they'll lend you a jacket,
Right.
If you don't have one because you got to wear a jacket. So we basically have the same rule. Okay, if you show up and you don't have a costume,
Yeah, here's an
for
eye patch
some
or whatever.
ridiculous reason you came to a Halloween party with no costume, you got to put on a hat or a wig or do something. Let me paint your face or something. Because there's a vibe, right? Like and also it's a vulnerability. Everybody's there looking silly, being ridiculous.
Yep.
You don't get to escape looking silly, being ridiculous. And I actually find at parties, Halloween parties, costume parties, it breaks down barriers. People, it's easier for people to mingle who don't know each other because you have something to talk about.
Except every time you introduce me to somebody in real life, you're like, oh, here's Susie. You met her last year. She was in Orc. You may not recognize her.
Actually, that's the way I have to do with a lot at our Halloween party. It's people from so many of our different circles, which makes me sound super popular.
You are popular.
Then other times when we run into each other, I'll be like, okay, yeah, you guys have met. It's just you don't recognize him because he was Wolverine and she was like Japanimation or something.
Right,
Yeah.
something creepy, usually.
Do you want to know what I'm going as? But it's top secret.
Should it be, well, you're broadcasting it on a podcast
Yeah,
that
but the party will be over by
dozens
next week.
listen to.
Yeah, it does.
No, this podcast is going to go out like 2 days before Halloween.
I know, but you know the party is this weekend.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, tell me.
We're having it early because people want to trick or treat. We're going as Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton.
Is Pete going to be Dolly?
No,
That would be a great
no,
twist.
because he actually has
I was
the facial
hoping.
hair and stuff
Yeah,
now.
so you are going to have gigantic boobs? All right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Look forward to that. Okay, so
So-
this was our Halloween episode.
Yeah.
Now let's go into the interview with Reneé. So we're here talking with Reneé Warren from Onboardly. They are a marketing agency that specializes in working with tech startups. Thank you for being on the show, Reneé.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I've actually wanted to chat with you for a while because I've followed your guys' work for a few years now, and I love everything that you guys do. So it's nice to be able to finally talk with you. Can you just give the listeners a little rundown of what Onboardly is and what you and your team are all about?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I know that we've been chasing each other for quite some time, so it's nice to finally sit here and chat. So Onboardly started about 3.5 years ago when I was living out in San Francisco. I was doing some consulting work with some other tech startups out there and met my former business partner, Heather Carson, and we just hit it off. And I was doing a lot of content and social, and she was doing a lot of actual PR for startups. And we just started working on projects together. And it got to the point where, funny story is that over a plate of meat at South by Southwest, we kind of just fell in love in terms of being friends and being business partners.
What kind of meat was it?
Oh, it was ribs, and what's that? Cornbread and anything barbecue at Austin because it's just amazing. Yeah,
Okay,
it was,
down
it was
south,
neat.
enough said.
I so love
You
that
would
didn't-
appreciate that because we're actually drinking beers too. So it kind of goes with the
What?
show.
I so love that you met. You didn't say you met over salad or something. Like I love it that it was two women drinking beer and eating real meat.
Okay, well, that's a perfect segue to when I actually proposed to her in a way. At this
Does
point,
Dan know about this?
well, I don't know.
I guess he should, shouldn't he?
So we were back in the East Coast at this point, and I was probably about 7 months pregnant with my first child. And I was like, Heather, we should go out for dinner. We're both eating salads. She had a glass of wine, and I was not drinking, obviously. And I basically proposed to her saying, hey, let's go into business together. And she just looked at me like a deer in headlights, as anybody would, saying, how can a woman who's 7 months pregnant ask to start a business with me right now? And we did. And it happened again 11 months later when we welcomed our second son. But the long and short of it is we plowed through a lot of interesting times in the course of over 3 years. And it's been amazing. So we work with funded technology startups to help them with customer acquisition to get brand awareness and visibility for their company. And
Cool.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
So I just want to go back to this for a minute because you talked about proposing to Heather. It's funny because we're probably not the only ones, but Kevin and I use the marriage analogy like all the time. People probably think there's something scandalous going on because we fight like a married couple. You know, we said like he knows he can tell the twinkle in my eye. He knows when I'm drunk. Like I still remember when I proposed to you, Kevin. So
Yeah.
it's nice to hear somebody else use that marriage analogy.
We've been together almost a decade.
Almost a decade.
Wow, there you go. See, what's the decade anniversary? Is that that's not paper?
I thought it was better than paper. It's like bronze or silver, isn't it?
No, it's not silver.
We can pretend
you've got
it
a
is.
ways to go.
Silver, yeah.
You got a ways to go.
Little ways. Yeah, when we're in the retirement homes.
The reality is, when you start a business with somebody, if it's a serious business, you're going into the same sort of contract, if not more serious than you would be if you're getting married.
Well,
You're
my
sharing
wife-
bank accounts,
Yeah.
you're sharing all that information, and it's a legal binding contract between two people, just like a marriage is.
My wife spoons better though. I find a lot better spooner. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I'm a pretty good spooner, but anyway. There's a lot of trust, and they're kind of your only person that you can really vent to about business problems, right? You know, you can be totally honest with that person and just spill your guts.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is they're great sounding boards too. And the compliment that she had to me was she had a different skill set. And I always came up with these crazy ideas and she'd be like, no, we can't do that. Or that's just absurd. So I kind of like that sounding board. And they're also the ones that'll kind of help you build you up and pull you out of those ruts. Like businesses have those ebbs and flows. And when it's great, it's amazing. And you have someone to share that success with. And then when it's not so amazing, then you have someone to complain with. And it's great for all facets of the business. It's awesome. But in the last 2.5 months, 2.5 months ago, actually, Heather left the company. She's now doing her own startup. So I've been taking kind of the reins and everything. And I own 100% of the company, and I'm the clear leader. So yeah, there's been a huge change in the organization. It's been quite a wild ride, and I'm just coming up for air right now. Wow. But when the dust all settled, I just realized wow, there's a lot you can accomplish too by yourself. So I mean, there's advantages and disadvantages to having a co-founder, and I've seen them both.
So many similarities to the marriage. So keeping along that analogy, you got divorced recently. You're a recent divorcee, and
my co-founder divorcee.
Yeah. So what? I mean, obviously some of it's probably personal or confidential, and you may not want to talk too much about it. But at a high level, I mean, what's it like? Kevin and I haven't divorced yet. We're planning on once the kids are grown up, we're probably going to divorce.
Or we're going to move to Hawaii.
That's a great option.
Or we'll just have an open marriage. I don't know where this is going. Anyway, so we haven't divorced. I've never gone through that. But, I guess what if somebody out there, if listeners have business partners, which many of them do, what I guess is some kind of things that you should keep in mind, maybe to protect yourself, protect your other co-founder for in the event that, people just gradually move on and change as they do in life, and what are some kind of, I guess, tips that we should keep in mind?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is really that shareholders agreement. It's interesting because when you first start a business, you're kind of on this high. It's like when you start dating this new guy or new girl, it's like everything's rosy. How could anything possibly go wrong? Because it's so perfect right now. But the reality is that you don't know what's going to happen 2, 3 years out, 10 years out, and you need that binding shareholders agreement. And with us, we hired a lawyer. We had someone who was an expert come in and lay out the land for us, explain to us how everything's going to happen. And it's quite uncomfortable going through all of that, but you need it. And then outside of that, the legal documentation is actually the operations of the business. So like I mentioned earlier, is that we had complementing skill sets. So for us, it meant really clearly defining what it is that we're doing for this company and who reports to who. So we have employees. There was, for the longest time, it was hard for people to understand who the clear leader was. They didn't know who to go to. Heather was kind of the more open person, who was the shoulder to cry on. But when it came to like the operations side of business, in terms of getting raises and getting days off, people would come to me. So we had to really make sure that there was a clear line of who's responsible for what and who reports to whom.
Sounds like you had to be the bad guy and Heather got to be the good guy.
Well, I'm actually the one that fired. Yeah, so I was the bad guy. I played the bad cop.
I think Kevin and I have always fired together for the most part.
Yeah, we have different skill sets, but
I had to do it twice. And both times I did it, Heather happened to be in Vegas with her husband at his annual convention. And the timing was ironic. And I was like, you know what? I've done this before. I'll just do it again. To me, it's a lot easier than I anticipated. I hate hurting people's feelings, but if you do it right, you're providing constructive criticism to these people, as long as they're not malicious about it. But if there's a real solid reason to let these people go, it's like you provide them that feedback so that they can move on and hopefully correct their mistakes. But firing is an interesting thing.
Well, okay, let's talk about that for a minute. We can go back to the shareholders conversation, but how do you fire somebody the right way, and how do you fire them the wrong way?
Well, I don't know the wrong way. I just wouldn't know how to do it.
Well, tell them you hate you're sick of looking at their face.
Well, I guess the question is, how did you know you fired the person in the right way?
Well, there's obviously the contract that the employees sign, and there's rules in terms of letting go or being laid off. So you have to follow those rules. And it was just an average contract within the employees, and they knew that, given how much time they've been employed by us, what we're required as an employer to give to them based on our contract and the province and the legals. But we always gave them fair notice plus the pay, even though I may not have been required to do so. So for me, it's being empathetic. It's like, these people screwed up. They have every grounds to let them go. However, they're young. They might be naive because it happened to be young people. I want to make sure that they move onwards and upwards. And that for me, it was like, here's your 2 weeks notice. Here's the pay, but I'm going to do you a solid, and here's your 2 weeks pay, and I'll just ask you to leave today, kind of thing. And they said, wow, okay. And you provide that feedback. But long story short, I actually had one of the kids that I had fired a couple years ago. He came into the office the other day to say hi. They're like, we're still friends. And he's like, I get why you let me go. And that was the whole point, was that it wasn't a great fit. He wasn't performing, let him go. We're still friends. That's the most important thing. Now, unless someone does something that's fairly malicious, then it's a whole other story. But in our case, these people were just, it was just amicable.
That's kind of, I think every time we've had to fire somebody, which has only been about, three or four times. And it was never the person was malicious. It was just they weren't performing. They clearly weren't the right fit. It's very hard to still be friends with them after, because even as much as you'd like to, if you were kind about it and everything, I just find there's always that, you fired me kind of vibe in the air. Maybe I'm imagining that. I don't know.
I think back to Headspace, and the first person we'd let go, we were still buddies with him, and just the timing was bad and where he was at in his career.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay, so going back to, so you were kind of the operations person, so you had to do a lot of that HR kind of stuff. And so you and Heather shared your roles. You had a very clear differentiation of who does what. And did that help you guys work together for all those years?
Oh, absolutely. It was, and the thing about it, which was interesting, was that we kind of just fell into those roles. It wasn't like I'm doing this, this, and this, and you're doing that. When we first started out, it was just kind of like it just happened to settle that way. I was a lot. My clear role was operations and inbound, and hers was sales and client management. But here's the ironic part: is if you put the first letter of our names together, Heather and Reneé, H&R, it's like we were both the HR people.
And yeah, your H&R block.
Yeah, so we're the HR people. But for us, it was like what I was doing fed into her sales pipeline. So if I wasn't doing my job, she couldn't close the deals, but she still had to close the deals. So it was like a fair weight in terms of responsibility for the organization. She did all the finances. I did all the operations stuff, and a large part of the HR things too. And it worked out. It just fit. Now, I actually ran a previous agency with another co-founder that didn't work out because we didn't have those clear rules and roles defined in terms of who's doing what. We're always stepping on each other's toes. And if in that case, you have to go back to that, guys, this is what I'm doing. This is what you're doing. This is who reports to who. Here's the structure. Really lay out the lay of the land in terms of roles and responsibilities.
I agree completely. I mean, that's served Kevin and I for the last 7 years, is really having a pretty clear differentiation of where each of our skills lie, and we respect each other's decisions. And if Kevin's the legal, finance, operations side, then I don't try to infringe on that, and vice versa. So how has the transition been now that Heather used to primarily handle sales and account management and just oversight of the accounts? Has that been there's been a learning curve, or is that something that you've been able to step into and take over without too much trouble?
Not so much of a learning curve. For me, it was just a reality check, because she was doing a large part of the stuff that I didn't like to do because I didn't think I was good at. So I didn't think I was really good at jumping on a phone call and closing deals. But when I was forced into that role, my God, I made it work. And the funny thing is our revenues have increased, and we're down 2 people, and I haven't employed anybody to replace them. That something happened within the organization, and obviously dynamics change as soon as one person comes and goes, but we're just all jiving, and we work great, and we're not all overworked. And it just, it's kind of that thing that needed to happen, and we didn't know it. And it's been working out. And I'm loving it right now, to be honest with you. But yeah,
That's awesome.
There's no learning curve. It took a little while. Like I said earlier, I'm just coming up for air right now. So it's been 2.5, almost 3 months now. And I closed the deals to keep us going forward. I'm working more on the operations side of things. So looking at what the next 3, 5, 10-year plan looks like for the company. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Have you considered, or is it sort of on your radar to look at, maybe either promoting within or hiring somebody else to help share some of that workload? Because I'd imagine if you're now handling sales and other stuff you didn't used to lead last, when Heather was with you, now there's less time for the other stuff that you used to do, like the inbound marketing and all the other responsibilities. Are you going to eventually need somebody to kind of share more of those roles with, even if they're not an actual, shareholder in the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So Crystal, she's been with the company as long as me, pretty much. She's the director of PR. So she kind of runs the show anyway. She just stepped up. I didn't have to ask her or tell her what she needs to do. She just stepped up. She knew what she needed to do. It took a lot off my plate, and it's just worked out. But as we grow, we obviously need those account managers, and I'll need somebody to come in and help me as well, because it's a lot at the top. But I'm building a great board of advisors, and I've had a lot of support from outside people that I haven't needed to actually hire somebody to replace her at this point.
That's a good point you bring up about a board of advisors. We never really had that when Kevin and I ran our agency. We never had a board of directors or a board of advisors. But since starting Proposify, we do have a board of directors and maybe some official and unofficial advisors, and it's helped a lot just having those sounding boards. So you don't maybe see that as much in the agency world or the service businesses, but how I guess has that worked for you, and what are the types of people that you want as advisors?
So I'm just starting out now. I have 2 confirmed, but one in particular has sold his agency in the past, and so he's achieved a level of success that I want to achieve eventually with my career. So he's kind of the been there, done that person. So I needed that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, someone who's never worked in an agency or with an agency before, is retired, but understands the corporate world. And so his perspective is completely different. When it comes to finances and operations, he's the guy to go to. And so I have two guys right now, and I'm still working on finding a couple others. Hopefully I'd get a woman on board. But yeah, from right now it's new. It's only been a couple months. We haven't done anything formal other than me asking them if they would participate. And 2 people I asked said yes, so I think it's a good start.
How about Dan? I'm sure he's a great resource.
So Dan thinks he owns half the company.
You put him in his place, I hope.
Yeah, no, he's been exceptional. Funny story is he's on Periscope a lot. And he came into the office unannounced one day and was just walking around talking into his phone. I was like, oh God, he's on the Periscope. Before I know it, he's introducing the team, the office, me, what we do. And he's like, hands me the phone. He's like, talk about Onboardly. What do you guys do? And so I pitched his growing Periscope following. And it wasn't maybe a week later, I'd closed 2 deals because of it.
Wow.
So he's super helpful. He understands what I was going through. He gave me 1 week to really bitch about my co-founder leaving. And then after that, he's like, you got to grow up. I'll be your resource. But yes, he's super helpful.
For the listeners who don't know what we're talking about, so you, Reneé, are married to Dan Martell, and he's kind of a big name in the tech startup world. He just sold, I think, what is it, like his 5th startup, Clarity, knows a ton about startups and growth and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really enjoyed getting to know him 2 years ago at the Montreal Startup Festival, the International Startup Festival. Great guy and just a encyclopedia of knowledge.
Oh, I know. The stuff that comes out of his mouth. But let me tell you, when it comes to parenting, I know more than he does.
Is that so? You guys are a power couple. You're both running successful businesses. I mean, and you've got 2 young children. What's that like to manage? That's a busy house, isn't it?
Well, it took me a long time to be convinced of it, but the same operations manuals that you apply to your business, you have to apply to a house like the one we live in. 2 entrepreneurs, 2 babies that are 11 months apart. So we create this structure, those schedules. It's like I do morning routine, he does night routine. And maybe you can trade off those schedules, but these things are set in stone. So if he travels, then we have people come in and help. If I travel, same thing. But it's like from 6 a.m. till 8, I'm on deck. It's me. If Dan wants to help out, cool. But I'm the responsible one. Then I leave, go at my business. At the end of the day, he picks them up. He does a nighttime routine. I'll cook dinner and pack lunches. So it's kind of like this is the way it is. I hated the routine at first, but you need it, especially with kids. If you guys have any kids or listeners that have kids, you need that routine. They're sticklers for routine. So for us, like, fine, you know what? We're going to give up our freedom for a little while, but it's enjoyable. And they've taught us so much too about being more compassionate, patient, and empathetic. And those things that I apply to my business today.
Oh, totally. Agree. Kevin and I each have 2 kids. Kevin's are a bit older, but yeah, we find the same thing. A lot of routine. You can't, sometimes entrepreneurs without kids can, do more of especially when they're younger in their early 20s, they seem to just work 24/7 all weekend, all evening, and maybe you can get a lot more done, but you just can't do that, as you...
Unless you have dogs. I got dogs, same thing. You got to keep them on a routine. If you break the routine, it's a disaster on the kitchen floor.
Exactly. Exactly. You said something earlier about when we were talking about advisors, and you said you've got 2 male advisors right now, but you're looking for another, hopefully a female. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I mean, Onboardly is primarily known as a very female-driven company. Most of the employees, if not all, correct me if I'm wrong, are female. So why is that important to you? What does that mean to you?
Well, I don't want to say I'm a feminist, but I think every woman is in a way. I think there is that understanding with each other. Like, yeah, it's great to have the males, and really, it's irregardless of gender. But for me, it's like I want that woman who's had to break that supposed glass ceiling to achieve the level of success that she has. And I think that it looks good for the diversity. Our team is completely female. We've hired males. They've come and they worked with us, and it was great. But the funny part about it too is that we're a team full female team, and we work predominantly with male clients. So there's and it complements each other too. Like, we're very over communicative, and in our industry, that's great because clients want to know exactly what we're doing. But yeah, so the dynamic is there. In terms of finding that female advisor, I don't know exactly yet, but I think that it would be just a good weight to have another lady.
Reneé, is it a rumor, or do you have a life-size poster of Justin Trudeau in the office framed on the wall?
No.
Okay, just want to... No, I'm just joking around because of the all that crazy stuff going around, feminism and all that kind of fun.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know what Kevin's talking about?
No, actually, I don't. But that's funny. I'm like, did Crystal put something in the office today? Because I didn't see anything.
Well, it's okay. There's a few things there. So you said I don't know if I want to call myself a feminist. Well, I mean, at least from my standpoint, and I think a lot of others, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing, right? Like, it means we all want equality, and so it shouldn't be a bad word. But this all came about because for those who aren't Canadians listening to the show, we have a new prime minister after 10 years of a conservative leader. We now have Justin Trudeau, who son of a famous prime minister from the 70s, and he also happens to be a very good-looking man. And so there's been a lot of stuff online lately where, mostly females, I think, were, talking about how hot Justin is and stuff they would like to have done to them and stuff like that. And so this all came about. Jen, you can talk to this a little bit, just about how if it was a female leader, nobody would be able to get away with this. I'm sure guys would still be pigs as we can be, but you'd be called out on it, like, hey, this is our new prime minister, stop being sexist. But suddenly it's okay because it's a male prime minister and we're allowed to objectify him. So that was what Kevin was referring to.
It was a joke, but anyway.
I don't know where.
All right, Jen, jump in. Come on.
He is a good-looking man, but yeah, and young too. And the funny thing too is, not that long ago, the province of New Brunswick elected a new premier, who is also fairly good-looking too. He's a Liberal. So we got some. I don't know, something in the water, I say, in Canada makes for some great leaders.
The GQ prime minister.
Yeah.
Yes.
The GQ.
The GQ party.
But just on that, one thing I wanted to get back to, because it was something that interests me about your company, is the fact that you employ all women. And as you noted, because I also know, especially more now that I'm working with Proposify, looking in the startup world, it is like guy city out there. And you mentioned one thing about the communications aspect of it, but I just wondered if there are any other things that you notice. Are you coming across more women who are entrepreneurs in the tech startup world, or do you see a shift going on? Because even, for example, this podcast, I'm always trying to find great new women entrepreneurs that we can interview on here, because if you go through our list, I mean, they're all super interesting interviews, but we need to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, there is a shift. I've seen it. And I think it's becoming more acceptable too. And I would say largely outside of the Valley. So everyone thinks, tech startup land is the Valley, which it is, but there's a lot more female founders. And it's interesting in working with them, because I find that and it's probably just the way that how men and women are built. I don't know, don't quote me on this, but I actually feel I connect better with working with female founders, probably because we over communicate. Men, and I don't know if they're intentional about it, but we work with them and they're more blunt, shorter paragraphs. And like all this is done over emails and phone calls, but men are like, this is what I want done, do it. Women are like, this is what I want done, but let me know if you have any questions. I'll help you. And it's true. And I'm not trying to perpetuate a stereotype, but it's true. And we've worked with a lot of female founders and a lot of male founders, and it's quite a different dynamic in terms of our relationships.
You mean you can't decipher our grunts?
You know.
No.
It's interesting you say that because I found that even working with designers in my career and agencies and stuff, how I would give feedback to a male designer compared to a female designer was totally different, right? The same thing. I would be blunt with the guys, like, okay, we got to do this, this, and this. But like you said, when I was talking to a woman, I framed it up a little bit differently. And I don't think I did it consciously. It was just like, okay, this is how he was communicating with me. I'll communicate in the same way, because that's what you want to do, is communicate with people on the similar level. And then the same thing when I was working with women.
I think maybe the problem is that, again, I'm not a psychologist, but I think in general men want the shortest path to the solution, like the quickest way to solve the problem. And I think women generally like to look at all the, facts, kind of take the longer route, but maybe have a lot more,
Substance.
a lot more substance in there. I think that maybe that's just the way we think. Like, it's like if your spouse or significant other is like venting their problems, men tend to be like, well, just do this, solve the problem like this. But it's like, well, that's, I don't want just a solution. I want you to hear me out.
Yeah. It's funny though. I mean, Dan and I are newlyweds, but been together for a while. And I was like, Dan, I'm gonna bitch about something right now. Mm-hmm. Just listen to me. Don't try to solve my problem. Like, all right, go.
Okay, so good. It's
so
not just
true.
me then.
It's totally
Thanks
true.
for that bit of advice. I'm going to start using that.
Yeah, it works.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you said like it's good to just have variety, I agree, because like when we started Proposify, I think the first four of us, so Kevin and I and two employees, we were all men, which, in a tech startup is not an unusual thing. But I know when we were starting to expand the team, it's not that we were, I guess, giving preference to women, but we really wanted to find, like for instance, when we hired a customer support agent, we had, I think, over 100 applicants, and most of them were male, which I don't know, you would have thought maybe it was 50-50 or something. We ended up picking, I think, the best person for the job, but we were also really wanted to get like some female employees in just for that, for the sake of having diversity and other, ideas to come to the table, right?
But she was by far the best.
Yeah.
Well, we've employed men, and I was like, oh, there's always these stereotypes about men and working with men and women working with women and all this stuff. And I was like, no, it's true. The way they operate, the way we operate as women and men are quite different. And I think if you can respect that, then you have a seamless kind of team. And we had that. And I knew like the emails I would send to one person were quite different than the emails I would send to another person. Now we have a small team, so I get to know these people quite well. I can't imagine a bigger organization. But for me, it's like, Jane Doe, I had to add smiley faces and make sure that she understands the tone of my email. But for John, I didn't have to. I'd just be like, yo, John, I need this now. Be like, yep, coming up. And when you go to managing your team, you have to understand, though, these people, they understand your communication style differently. And you don't want to hurt their feelings. You want to provide constructive, criticism, and you want to make sure they're getting their jobs done. But at the same time, it's like one person might need an extra couple X's and O's in their email to the person who they don't even care.
Well, just speaking about your team and communicating with them, in terms of when your co-founder left, like how did you navigate that with your team, like talking about that change and what it meant for the company, and I guess calming any fears if there were any about, okay, well, what's happening, because are we in a state of flux, or is everything cool?
Well, there wasn't just calming the team, there's also calming the clients, because when they look at it too, they're like, why is she leaving? And it was rather abruptly too. So it was like, what's going on? And I just put on my smiley face the whole time and say, guys, I'm here for the long haul. Like, I believe in this company, I believe in this team and what we're doing. So it's going to change because there's one less person, but I'm quite capable of running this organization. And when it came to the team, well, immediately when she made that decision, we had Crystal, our most senior person, come down to the meeting to let her know right away, because we needed to do some logistical stuff that would involve her, so she needed to know. And then we spent the rest of that day figuring out how we're going to tell the rest of the team so that they understood the situation as opposed to taking it personally or have it fear for their job the next day. So we did one-on-ones with everybody. And we had, at the time, one remote worker in Montreal. She's still there. I had to call her up. It's like, hey, here's the news, but it's not going to change anything for you. And the two people that had been working with us the longest saw it coming. I wish I did. And then our two remote workers were quite surprised. And yeah, there was, a couple of weeks where things were in flux and they didn't know how things were going to be and they were hesitant. But it was my job now was that a clearly defined leader to motivate them and to know that no matter what, I'm here for you. I'm going to make sure that you're going to enjoy your work with us and our clients and that we're moving forward, all full steam ahead.
Wow. So, I mean, it's always hard to know what's over the horizon, but what do you see as, kind of what are your goals for the next year and where do you see Onboardly going?
Yeah, well, now that I'm kind of coming out of this fog, I'm actually starting to look at, different avenues in terms of what we can offer. So we have a course now called the Ultimate PR Machine, which teaches companies that are just starting out how to do their own PR. Because we say that PR is an important part of developing the entire product too. So we're looking at kind of the educational component of the things that we do because, new startups don't have the finances to afford certain agencies in their retainer work. So we want to be able to help them out. So we're going to be looking more from an educational perspective too. But also looking to shift potentially who we're working with. So we focus a lot on tech startups and created this demand methodology, but it can actually be applied to pretty much any industry. And we want to kind of diversify our portfolio a little bit to where actually one of our biggest clients now is not a startup. And we love the dynamic that we have with them. So we might start venturing outside of the tech startup space and looking at other industries too.
This is really interesting. So I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to talk about this for a minute because we actually, on this show, we talk a lot about specializing when you're an agency. Because one thing Kevin and I did when we ran Headspace was we were generalists. We started out actually with a pretty strong portfolio in the tourism and travel space. And actually, the episode that came out today, we interviewed Jamie Gerard from Verb Interactive, who you might know here in Nova Scotia. They're a marketing agency that just focuses on specializing in tourism travel clients. And when we were starting out, we were sort of competing with them a little bit for local tourism work. And then we kind of just generalized and they really specialized and doubled down on that niche. And for the past 5-10 years, they've just been killing it, working with some of the top brands all over the world. And they're just they own that niche. And I've also used Onboardly as an example of specializing because the same thing, you guys focus on the tech startup world. You're known for that. If you're a tech startup and you need PR and content marketing, who else do you call? You call Onboardly. So it's really interesting now to hear that you say you want to actually diversify a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, looking at the long-term plan for Onboardly, it's been really tough for us to secure long-term engagements with startups because it's always in flux. They don't know where they're going to be in the next few months. So for us, our average engagement is 6 months long, which isn't great. It just makes for a more difficult sales funnel and it's not really forgiving. So that was the big thing. Although we love working with tech startups because we love the agility and the fact that our ideas are actually heard and executed on. But at the same time, from a business standpoint, there's this kind of rumor going around about the next bubble. It's going to burst in the tech space. And it's just you have to start looking at other options. And the future of what we do, I think, in order to impact more people and to teach them on how to do PR themselves is really looking at the 50-50 divide between selling this education component and actually doing retainer work for some awesome startups. But I want to get to the point within the organization that we can start giving more back to charities and companies doing social good so that we can teach them how to do their own PR to help them do it. But for the most part, we really want to get to the point where we can divide half our retainer work and half with an educational component.
That's a really neat idea. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that are doing really well with that because they can teach, all the stuff they know to a wide audience that they can sell. Like, I don't know what the model is, but let's say selling workshops and ebooks and webinars and that kind of thing, and satisfy that sort of lower end of the market. But then if for companies that need the more high end, high price special work, then they find out about you through those means, but you've already demonstrated how much you know through all the other stuff. So I don't know what your exact plan is with that, but it sounds like a great model.
Yeah, well, the ideal world is you're talking to these people who are just starting out and are bootstrapping their own companies, and they purchase your course, they buy into your content to help grow their company to the next level, to either get funding or increase revenues so that they can afford you. So it's kind of like planting the seed with them on an affordable scale so that later on they can hire you. That, to me, is the ideal outcome, and essentially why we created the course to begin with.
Awesome. Makes sense. Thank you so much for being on the show, Reneé. Had a lot of fun chatting with you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
When are you going to be in town next? Did you come to Halifax much?
Admittedly, no.
Okay. Just thought
I know. Well, we actually started working with Vendiv. So, so that's the kind of the female startup I was referring to in conversation. But I think they're
down the hall from us.
Oh, well, there you go.
Caitlin's great.
Yeah, so we started working with them at the beginning of the month. So typically my rule is we have to go to the city of the startup at least once. But that is proven to be difficult because there was a point where we had a client in Amsterdam, England, San Francisco, and Sioux Falls. And I was like, yep, we can't go visit all these clients in a matter of 2 months. But no, I'd love to get out to Halifax more. This fall, our travel schedule is absurd, but we will eventually get out there.
Well, be sure to look us up when you're out here. And we'll have that beer finally.
And I'd love to, I might follow up with an email after this and just see if you have some suggestions, whether they're your clients or not, but we'd love to get some more women on the show, and you might have some suggestions that would be great.
Yeah, now, is it people from, is it global?
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we talk with people from all over the world.
I'm a part of this agency mastermind group, the guy named Jason Swank out of
Atlanta.
Jason.
Okay.
Yeah, Jason's been on the show, and we've got a really
I know,
good,
because Jason, we're in this private Facebook group for the agency mastermind, and someone's like, hey guys, I need a proposal software. I was like, duh. Who else are you going to go to? And then I mentioned it, and then Jason mentioned it. I was like, hey, you know these guys? They're like, yeah, I do too. So anyway, as a part of his agency mastermind, there are some women in there, and they're awesome. They're very articulate too. So it'd be great to have on the show.
I wonder if he'll let us in on that Facebook group, even if we're not agency owners.
Well, we're going to see him in November in Arizona.
Yeah, next month we're going to Phoenix, so we'll see Jason there.
I was just there.
Oh,
what's happening there?
It's an Infusionsoft partner conference.
Oh, cool. I'm a HubSpot girl.
Yeah, it's like Coke and Pepsi, right?
Oh, they taste different.
They do, yeah. Conversation for another day.
He had our agency mastermind retreat earlier this month that happened to fall on the weekend of Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving, so I couldn't go. But I haven't actually met him in person yet. I really did want to go, but when you do see him, give him a big hug from me.
Yeah, we will do. He's a good guy. Talked a lot about Power Rangers last time he was on the show, so we'll get him on again.
True story.
All right, thanks a lot, Reneé.
All right, well, have a great day, guys.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Great interview with Reneé, even though you made it really uncomfortable, Kevin.
Oh, you mean with the Trudeau thing, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
She didn't get the
I'm
joke.
just kidding.
She didn't know it.
Yeah, she
No,
didn't know.
it's okay.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
What I loved is when Reneé was talking about as you'll hear in the interview, she had a co-founder, and the co-founder left to found another company, and so Reneé was left doing both jobs, and she discovered quickly that things she thought she wasn't good at, and she hadn't done before, that now that she has to do them, she's actually good at them. And I love that moment. It's happened to all of us. Sometimes we avoid things, we think we're not good at them, but then when we actually try them, we can do it. I mean, some things you still find you don't like me with financials, but there's lots of things. If you give yourself a chance to figure it out and have a little confidence, you can surprise yourself.
So true.
I'll use my own example of that was when I started freelancing. I knew I could do design and I could, manage clients and stuff like that, but I was always terrified of selling. I never thought I had the ability to sell because, I don't know, kind of uncomfortable around new people, or at least I was at the time. I didn't have a lot of confidence. And that's where, Kevin, you were captain sales, so it was a great partnership that way. And now it's sort of evolved a little bit, but actually sales is one of my favorite things now.
Excellent.
I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's great.
I like it.
Well, it was a great interview, and Halloween's coming.
Yes, in 2 days from when people will hear this, it will be Halloween. So tell us what your costumes are. Tweet it out.
And we'll post pictures of Kyle
idea.
dressed as Batman in the show notes.
Tweet it. Bye for now.